When you feel pain in your body, you go to the pharmacy to buy medicine to get rid of it. That is the natural thing to do. But going to the pharmacy only for your life to turn into a living hell afterwards, that is not natural. And that is exactly what happened to me. I am writing this down while I'm hiding under the pharmacy shelves. It was last May. The time was past 2 in the morning. The cold air in the Ohio suburbs was breathtaking. The chill was seeping into my frail body. I was suffering from a dry, relentless cough. My chest felt like it was burning, as if I were inhaling crushed glass. My wife was fast asleep, and I didn't want to wake her. I tried making some warm drinks to ease the cough, but it was useless. The coughing wouldn't stop. I decided to slip out of the house and head to the 24-hour CVS pharmacy. It was close to my house, only about a 10-minute drive away. I got into my car and drove off. The streets were eerily quiet, not like they usually are. The pale yellow streetlights were flickering slowly. I arrived at the store and parked in front. I walked inside. The silence was so unsettling that the sound of my footsteps on the shiny tile sounded like the ticking of a ticking clock. The store was empty of customers. Only the employee was behind the counter. He was a young man in his 20s, buried in his phone. Looking completely exhausted, I headed straight for the medicine aisles. While I was looking for cough syrup, I got a strange feeling. A feeling that something was behind me in the parallel aisle. I stopped moving and gripped the medicine bottle tightly. I couldn't hear anything except the intermittent hum of the air conditioner. I looked toward the convex mirror hanging in the corner of the ceiling. I saw the reflection of the other aisle. It was empty, but a metal shopping basket was lying on the floor in the middle of the aisle, as if someone had just left it and run away. I ignored it, thinking my feverish, sick imagination was playing tricks on me. I reached the checkout area. The pain in my chest was getting worse. I placed the medicine bottle on the cold marble counter, waiting for the employee to come out from behind the shelves to ring me up, just like I had done hundreds of times before. I stood there for a few seconds, breathing with difficulty and wiping my sweat. But the store was drowning in a strange silence. There was no sound of the usual beverage refrigerator motors, nor the sound of the store radio playing soft music. I turned to look for the employee. I thought he might have gone to get something from the back. I looked toward his small desk attached to the cash register, where he usually keeps his tablet or phone. I found the phone actually sitting on top of the shift schedule sheet. Its screen was flickering with successive notifications, illuminating the dark surface. I moved closer, thinking he might be in the restroom or in a nearby aisle. But when I saw the paper coffee cup next to the phone, steam was still rising from it. Here, I started to feel disturbed. In a 24-hour pharmacy, an employee wouldn't just leave the workstation like this while the coffee was still hot. I called out in a quiet voice, "Is anyone here?" I didn't get any answer. I called out again, "Is anyone here?" At that moment, I heard the sound of the back storage room door slamming shut with force at the end of the store, as if someone had kicked it or pushed it with all their strength to close it. I don't know what is happening. I decided I didn't want to buy the medicine anymore. I turned to leave. The store's automatic glass door, which had been opened minutes ago, was locked tight. I tried pushing it, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked from the outside. I felt cold beads of sweat sliding down my back despite the cold weather. A feeling grew inside me that something was about to happen to me now. I looked from behind the clear glass to the street. I saw my car parked in its spot. The parking lot that was empty just a moment ago seemed to have changed. I noticed an unknown black car that wasn't there before. It was parked directly behind my car, and its engine was running because the exhaust smoke was rising into the cold air. I turned back to the aisles. The store lights started to turn off, one aisle after another, starting from the farthest point to where I was standing. Pitch darkness was swallowing everything quickly. This atmosphere made my mind stop thinking. I didn't think about taking out my phone and calling the police. I thought about hiding, and I don't know why I thought like that. I ran toward the tissue aisle because it was the only place that offered good coverage. I jumped behind the high shelves. A few seconds later, I heard the sound of calm footsteps on the tile. Someone was walking slowly, checking the aisles one by one. The sound of his shoe soles rubbing against the floor was coming from the very next aisle. I remembered the employee. I started to wonder, is he in danger? Is this the person who took him? I heard a faint moaning sound coming from the internal pharmacy area, the sound of someone trying to stifle their scream. I hesitated for a moment. Should I run or help? But fear had paralyzed my will. The footsteps stopped completely, and a suffocating silence prevailed that lasted for seconds that felt like hours. After the power went out and pitch darkness prevailed, I saw a faint light coming from the glass refrigerators at the end of the aisle, and I heard the sound of rhythmic metal friction, as if someone was pulling heavy shopping baskets to block the aisle exit from both sides. I felt like I was being cornered by someone planning to make me unable to escape. I tried to sneak in the dark through the side aisle, but I bumped into something. It was a hand that grabbed my wrist with such force that I felt my joints were about to tear. The attacker didn't say anything. He didn't threaten. He didn't ask for money. What he did was pull me toward the back storage area with confident steps. When he pushed me inside the dark room and closed the door, I heard the sound of the metal bolt closing, followed by an eerie silence punctuated by the sound of a click from a lighter. Then cigarette smoke drifted from under the door. The person outside was smoking calmly, practicing his normal life completely, as if hunting me as a human at 2 a.m. was nothing but a short break in his work. I looked around in the storage room. It was a very small place, barely enough for one person to stand. Its walls were covered with deep scratch marks and fingerprints that I suspect belonged to people who were here before me. I am here in this concrete box. I hear his footsteps moving away slowly toward the front store door. I hear him locking the main glass door with the key from the outside. Then I hear the sound of his car moving away in the stillness of the night. He left me here, not as part of a complex plan, but simply because I was the wrong person in the wrong place at a very late hour. My phone has no service. The only light comes from a small hole in the door that barely shows me what is beyond it. I don't hear my family's voices. I hear the sound of slow death. The silence of the abandoned pharmacy until sunrise, where no one will miss me. I will remain here among the missing who are swallowed by the vortex of the big cities that never sleep. Without any explanation and without any reason. I used to think that the highway between Nevada and California at 3 a.m. was the quietest place on earth. But I later discovered that it is the place where things go to be unseen. My fuel gauge had hit the red line miles ago, and the darkness outside was so thick that the headlights of my old Ford seemed to pierce through nothing but a few meters of dust and void. When the lights of the only gas station appeared on the horizon, I felt an overwhelming relief, like a person who is drowning and finally touches a solid bottom. I stopped at pump number 4 and stepped out of the car to breathe in the cold desert air. The station was of the old, classic type. Rusty metal pumps, and a small convenience store building lit by a flickering red neon sign. It made the place look like it was pulsing with a sick heart. I started filling the tank. I was the only one there. There was no employee outside, and the glass doors of the store were locked, but the interior lights were on. I leaned in a little to see through the glass. I saw the employee sitting behind the counter, staring at his computer screen with a suspicious, unblinking focus, as if he were reading something that was absorbing his soul. I tried not to care. I just wanted to finish filling the gas tank and leave. In less than a minute, I heard a soft click coming from behind the car. It was the sound of a heavy truck door closing. It had been parked in the farthest dark corner of the station, and I hadn't noticed it before. I felt an unusual movement. A man in dark clothes got out of the truck and began walking very slowly toward the outdoor restroom. But he stopped suddenly in the middle of the path. He turned and looked directly at me. It wasn't a passing glance. It was a scrutinizing look, as if he were measuring my weight and height, or verifying something in my features. My hand froze on the gas nozzle, and my heart began to race. The distance between us was about 20 meters, but an instinctive feeling, that primitive voice at the back of my head, screamed at me that this man didn't belong in this place, and that I shouldn't be here. I quickly put the hose back in its place. My hands were shaking so hard that I spilled some gasoline on my shoes. I got into the car and locked the doors at lightning speed. I started searching for my wallet to pay, with the card at the machine attached to the pump. At that moment, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The man who was in the restroom had disappeared, but the heavy truck in the corner moved very slowly, without lights. It took a very strange position. It blocked the only station exit leading to the highway completely, like a wall of iron. The employee inside wasn't moving. He remained sitting in his rigid position, as if he didn't see what was happening outside. I started pressing the help button on the pump, but nothing happened, only a continuous buzzing sound. I looked in the side mirror and saw the man coming out of the darkness again. This time, he was walking with long, direct strides toward the driver's side window. He was wearing a black hat that hid most of his features, and his right hand was in his jacket pocket as if he were gripping something heavy. I tried to start the engine, but the car, which had never let me down, refused to turn over. I turned the key again and again. The sound of the tired engine echoed through the empty space like a cry for help. The man approached and reached the window. I banged my hand on the glass with force to attract the attention of the employee inside, but he didn't turn. The man stood right next to my window. He didn't say anything. He didn't ask for money or keys. But he placed his hand on the window's glass and looked at me with empty eyes. Then, he began very slowly to pull a long metal key from his pocket, to insert it into the narrow crack of the window. I felt that I was in a tight trap, designed carefully in this place where there is no police, no phone signal, and no witness to what will happen to me in the coming minutes. I realized that the danger wasn't in the weapon he might be carrying, but in the way I was being cornered. I picked up my phone, and the indicator showed no service. I looked at the employee again. Suddenly, he rose from his chair slowly. He walked toward the glass door and turned off the store lights completely, leaving me in absolute darkness, broken only by the dim light of the pump. In that moment of darkness, I heard the man beside me speak for the first time. His voice was terrifyingly calm, raspy, as if someone hadn't used their vocal cords for years. I heard him say, "You're too late. Everyone inside is waiting." Before I grasped the meaning of his words, I heard the sound of the store door opening, and 3 other men emerged from the darkness. They were wearing the same dark clothes, and they began walking toward my car with calm and steadiness. The man beside me broke the window glass with one precise, professional blow. I don't know how he did it, as if the glass were made of sugar. I pulled my arm back and screamed with all my might, but my scream was swallowed by the desert void. They opened the car door as if they were opening a closet door. They dragged me by my shirt to the outside, and I found myself hitting the cold, gasoline-stained concrete floor. I tried to resist and kicked one of them in the leg, but he didn't flinch. He didn't feel pain. He didn't scream. They pushed me hard toward the store door, where the employee was still standing, opening it for me to enter the unknown. I didn't see their faces clearly, but when I looked at the employee, I saw a faint smile that held no human features. They pushed me inside, and the sound of the metal bolt locking behind me was heard, announcing the end of everything I had ever known. I am inside now. Writing these words on my phone, whose battery has started its last red flicker, I don't know what lies behind the storage room door that they're standing in front of now. I hear nothing but the sound of their footsteps pacing around the place, waiting to decide when my night will end. No one knows I am here. No one will look for me at this forgotten station, and the sun will never rise for me again.